Hello guys, welcome back once again, and this is actually continuation of our NAT, that is network address translation, and this is just a lab session, and I'm recording this an extra of that what I have recorded the lab, and I just want to tell you that in the lab session I just forgot to add my mic. It was connected. I was thinking that I'm speaking on mic, but actually that was not connected in my laptop. So whatever the voice it has recorded, that is through my laptop mic. So laptop mic is not so good, so it has collected a lot of noise. So please bear with that, and I just don't want to record that lab once again because that's what's quite good. So just bear with that, and yeah, remaining that's okay. Let's continue our lab session. Okay.
So I have taken one example here, and that is quite easy. And for the simplicity, I have already configured most of the things, right? So for that, let me just quickly demonstrate you that what I have done, right? So, or let me open the pen. If it is open, it's not open. So let me open it. Yeah, it's here. Let me put it this side. Perfect. So what I have done, I have taken two routers. This router 1, router 2, which is red color here. I think it's not changing the color. Quick color 3, alt shift 3. Saying alt shift 3. No, it's not changing. It's not. Oh, it's done. Fine. So this is router 1 and this is router 2. Okay. So what I have done here, I have configured this interface IP 192.168.1.10. This interface, okay, and this interface G0/0/1, I have configured the IP address 200.200.12.1. This interface is 12.1, and this interface I have taken as 200.200.12.10. I don't remember. Let me just check it. What I have configured it. The command is show IP interface brief. 100 12.200.100 I have configured here. Okay, and it's always slow. No. Why my pen is always not working? I think it is having some technical issues. Oh, it's working now. So this is 100, okay, and if I check the config here in the router 2, so the other interface is 8.8.8.1. It means that this interface, this one is 8.8.8.1. I have already written, and I have taken one server here for the simplicity. 8.8.8. This is by default, that is a Google's IP. I have taken here for to just give you a feel that the real life example, although it does not matter much, but still I have taken it. And this is like our local area network, right? We have three computers here, 192.168.1.1, having the private IP addresses. These are the private IP addresses, and these are configured in this PC. I have taken one switch here, that does not matter, and the default gateway for them is 192.168.1.10. Okay, so I have configured the IP. These IPs are configured on these routers, and by default I am running OSPF for the connectivity, obviously, because without OSPF they will not be reachable. So I have already configured the OSPF for the reachability. So let me just quickly check that whether we are having the connectivity or not. Okay, so let me just do that one first. Let me open this PC. I have already done a lot of things here. 8.8. I'm trying to ping the server first. 8.8.8.8. So this is quite well. I'm giving the server, but we are not seeing anything that on which we are getting the ping request and on which IP address it is giving the reply. So for that one, what I have done, I have just enabled the ICMP on this router too. So what happens with the debug ICMP? Whenever any ICMP request hit that router, it gives you a message like this one. Okay, so whenever we are hitting this IP address 8.8.8.1, then it will give a message like this. How it will give it? Let me try to ping 8.8.8.1. If I ping it here, you will see that it is automatically seeing this one, that echo reply sent, on which source address is 8.8.1, that is the same IP address, that is source, and the destination is 192.168.1.1. Obviously it is replying to this one, so this is the destination and this is the source. That is quite obvious. So by default ping is sending 4 packets, so that's why it is sending 4 times. It is requested 4 times here, right? The first, second, third, fourth, the same thing it is doing every time. Even if I ping it from here, from the PC2, so what is going to happen? That it will just change the IP address, destination one, source is same 8.8.1, and the destination is there. And if we ping from this 1.3, then not 8.3, sorry, 8.1 from the PC3. Right, from the PC3 I am pinging 8.1, so now it will get the IP. Destination is 192.168.1.3. So right now whatever we are discussing, we have not enabled any configuration for the NAT. We have not done any configuration regarding NAT. That we are going to learn. So these are basic things that we are having the reachability, and that is very working fine. Why this ping is allowed? You might be thinking that in the real environment I was saying that private IP addresses are not reachable. So obviously, because this is our lab, and in the lab setup we don't have any service provider or something like that one, so that's why in the lab setup it is happening. But in the real environment you cannot ping the Google server with these private IPs. Okay, so anyhow we are going to configure the NAT in the router 1. So the first thing we are going to do, that we are going to configure the static NAT. So in the static NAT we are having a static mapping of the IP addresses. So for that purpose, what we do first, whenever we configure the NAT, there should be a NAT inside and NAT outside. That we have to define the interface, that which of the interface is going to be inside and which of the interface is going to be outside. So whenever interface is towards our internal network, that we say as a inside. Okay, and whatever is the public or global facing, that we say it as an outside. Okay, so whenever we are configuring the NAT, we have to tell the NAT that which of the interface is inside and which of the interface is outside. So in this lab setup, we are going to use this interface as outside because this is facing towards internet, right? So this will be, this interface G0/0/1 going to be set to be outside, and Z0/0/0 is set to be inside. So let's do it. Interface Z0/0/0, and that is going to be IP NAT inside. Same thing we are going to do for the interface G0/0/1 and IP NAT outside. Fine. So first what we have done, we have just told the router that for the NATing purpose, which of the interface is going to be inside and which of the interface is going to be outside. Next thing is just simply do the static mapping, nothing else. The command is IP NAT, and I forgot it, inside source, and then we are having the two options. The first one is list. Either you can make the list of these computers which are going to be NATed. Obviously it might be your company and you might be having multiple computers like 100 or 1000 or 200 or 500, so you cannot make all the table or static mapping, you just create a list of those computers and then you allow. But right now we are going to use this static, and after in the second lesson that is for dynamic we will use that list. Okay, so IPNet inside, so static, and if I put it a question mark, it is showing that inside local IP address. So local IP address I am taking it 192.168.1.1, our internal IP address 168.1.1, and where I am going to be translated inside global IP. Global IP means that public IP. So public IP I am going to hit it 200.200. Which one? 12.1. I'm going to map it with 12.1. So this is the one. So it means that whenever I'm going to ping from this PC, then it will translate it to the 200.200.12.1. And the same thing I'm going to do for the second computer, that whenever the .2 is requesting, then please map it to the .2. And if it is a third PC, that is this .3, then please map it to 12.3. Perfect. That's it. Nothing else to be done. Now let's see what happens if we ping 8.8.8.1. You see, this time our source is 8.8.1 and the reply is to 200.200.12.1, right? Destination is 200.200.12.1. Isn't that strange? It should be to this IP address, but still it is requesting to this 200, replying it to the 200.200.12.1, and you see that we are getting the reply. It is working very fine. Even you are not aware that what is happening in between. You are simply an user of 192.168.1.1. Somewhere in between it is translated to some other IP address. It is communicating to some other IP addresses, right? It is till now here up to here it is traveling 192.168.1.1, and after that one it is from here it is carrying with the IP address 200.200.12.1, and whenever it is replying back it is traveling with the same IP address with this one, and again when it is coming to here again it is going traveling back with 192.168.1.1, and you just end user and you don't know what happening in between. Even if there are some more routers in between, they can do the same thing. They can convert this IP address to some other IP address like 10.10.10 or something, right? So it is happening in the real world. They are having lot of NATing in their network. They are doing, but what is happening in result? You are sending a packet and you are getting reply. You are quite happy. You don't care at all that what is happening in between. Who is handling? Who is playing with your packet? But they are just not altering your information. They cannot alter your information. Whatever they are happening, they are just changing the IP address just for the sake of the delivery of your packet. Okay, we'll see what happens when we are replying with the another one. Let's see if you try to ping it from the PC2 8.8.1. Now we are seeing the reply from the 2.12.2, right? If you see the from the third PC, then obviously the request will be coming from the 12.3. That's quite simple, and there's nothing new. We have already discussed a lot more about the static IP, right? And we can see the NAT translations on this PC router 1. The IP is the command is show IP NAT translations. And you see that these are the translation available right now, and this is the what we have discussed, that inside global, inside local, outside global, and outside local and outside global. I always miss the words. So you see that thing inside local, it is the traffic is originating from that 1.2, it is going that global, then it is converted to the 12.2, 200.200.12.2, right? Same thing is happening with this 192.168.1.3, and it is converted to the 200.200.12.3. But the drawback of this static NAT was that for it is a one-to-one mapping, right? So for every case we have to need a separate IP, right? This is one-to-one mapping. So we are having for 192.168.1.1, we are using that 12.1 IP address. For this IP address, we are using the 200.200.12.2 IP address. For this IP address, we are going to use 200.200.12.3 IP address. So that is just wastage of IP addresses, right? So for this, improvement of this was to use the dynamic NAT, but still that was not quite well, but still it was an improvement from this static NAT. So now I'm going to configure the static NAT. So for that purpose, first what I will do, I will just delete the configuration what we have just done. NAT inside outside this will be running fine. I will just delete the command IP NAT inside source static 192.168.1.1 200.200.12.1, and I wanted to no means it will delete that configuration. Same thing I'm going to do for the 2. Okay, so it will delete the static mapping what we have just done for the static NATing, right? And if we ping it now, you will see that we will be getting reply from to the original that 192.168.1.1. It means that we have deleted the NAT static NAT mapping. Now what we are going to do, we are going to make a list of these IP addresses, right? So for creation of the list, we will use the same thing, access list, what we have just discussed in the previous lesson, right? So I will create an access list, IP access list, and I will use a standard one, and I give it a number 1. Okay, and then let me put a question mark here, and it's nothing. I'm inside a list, and what I'm going to do, I'm permitting all the IP addresses for which I want to do NAT, for which you want to do the NAT, right? If you permit only 3 IP addresses, so only 3 IP addresses will be NATed out, remaining all the IP addresses will not be NATed out. And what is happening, what is the benefit of this one, that if you are let me just explain you, if there is it's your company, let me do it like this. Let's see, if this is your company, right? And in your company there are multiple computers, right? But what you are permitted, you have permitted only 3 computers to be NATed out to NATing. So if your 3 computers are NATing, only these 3 computers will be accessing the internet. Remaining are not permitted to use the internet. That's also just extra advantage of this NAT, or you can say the access list, because both are involved in the access list and the NAT. So the same thing we just do in the real environment as well. So what we are going to do, we are just permit 3 IP addresses as of now, 168.1.1, and same thing I'm going to do 2 and 3. All 3 are allowed. And now if these 3 computers are allowed here, so if you remember a little bit what I have just discussed, in the dynamic NAT, what is happening, we are having some list of the IP addresses, we are having some, these are the private IP, right, and list of private IP list, and here there is some pool of the public IP, right? There are some IP addresses. So whenever these IP addresses want to access the internet, they will choose one of the public IP pool and they will go to the internet. They will choose one of the IP address pool, public IP address pool, and they will go to the internet. If this goes and if it does not find any of the available public IP addresses, it cannot reach the internet. Same thing for the, it does not get any of the public IP address, it cannot go to the internet. So right now we have just configured the or made the list of the private IP addresses here, right? This is the private IP addresses. Now we have to create a pool for the public IP address. So for that one, we just use this command IP NAT inside and source, and you remember I have given you two options, list or static. So static we just seen in the static IP static NAT, and this time we are going to use list. Source list, and if you put the question mark here, it is saying the word or number. So this time I'm just giving you a name of the pool, that is Anuj, that's my name actually, and if I put question mark again, it is saying the interface, specify the interface for the global address. So there is a two-way, either you can give an interface. If you assign the interface, every time it will take an interface IP address, this G0/0/1, that is our 200.200.12.1 IP address. It will take the IP address and go to the internet. Or you can just means there are multiple IP addresses you can assign. So we are going to assign a multiple IP address this time, and if I put question mark, is saying the pool list. I think I have missed something. Question mark list. Okay, list number. Which list I want to use it for that one. IP NAT inside source list. I think I'm missing something. IP NAT. Yeah, I have to create a pool. I'm not going to create the use that. If I do this thing what I was just doing, it is actually mapping the list to the pool, but first we have to create the pool. So IP NAT pool, and if I given the pool name, then I have to give the pool name first, Anuj, and then if I put question mark, it will say the start IP address, right? So start IP address, I'm going to give it 200.12.1, and the ending IP address I'm going to give it 200.200.12.2. It means that I have given the only two IP addresses in the pool. If you give it like 100 here, so it means that from 1 to 100 IP addresses you have given the pool, but this time I'm giving to only two IP address, that 12.1 and 12.2. You have to put the question mark, and it is asking the net mask. Net mask is like a subnet mask, and I'm giving it 255.255.255.0, that is a class C. So now I have created a pool name as Anuj, and the two IP addresses are there up to this range, and now I will do the mapping from list to pool, right? I have just discussed there is a list and there is a pool. List is like a private IP address and the pool is like a public IP address. So now I'm going to NAT inside source list, and the list name was 1, if you remember, where we have created list. Yes, list is standard 1, right? We have created the list number 1, and inside that list there are 3 IP addresses. So I'm going to use the list 1, and the pool was Anuj, and yeah, perfect, and hit enter. So now what we have done, we have mapped dynamically these 3 IP addresses to 2 IP addresses, 200.200.12.1 and 12.2. Let me hit the thing, you will see it. First is this one. If you see that which of, I think I have to clear it, right? Otherwise you just get confused at what is happening. Now let me bring it. So now if I hit ping here, you will see that it is replying to 200.12.2. It has picked any of the random IP address and it is showing the replying on that one. So let me show you the translation. Show IP NAT translations. So it is just translating from 192.168.1.1 to 200.200.12.2. We are having these two IP addresses in the pool, 12.2 and 12.1. Now 12.2 is in use right now, right? 12.2 is in use right now, and if I ping from the computer 2 this time, then what will happen? It is using the IP address 12.1. We are having the two IP addresses in the pool, and both the IP addresses are in use, 12.1 and 12.2. At the same time, if you ping from the third computer, that is a PC3, then what is going to happen? It is replying, but it will not. Why? Because it have cleared the translations. Let me ping it from here now. You see that the 8.8.1 is not able to ping. Let me just explain you why computer 1 is not able to ping now. We are having the three IP addresses, 192.168.1.1, 192.168.1.2, 192.168.1.3. These are three IP addresses in the list, and in the pool we are having the 200.200.12.1 and 200.200.12.2. What happened first? Whenever I pinged from this IP address, it took this IP address and gone to the internet. When I hit from ping from this, it took this IP address and gone to the internet. Whenever I just pinged from this IP address, it does not find any of the IP address, so the ping request was dropped. Now your question might be coming that earlier it was allowed, right? Earlier it was allowed and this time it was not. Why it was not happened? Because whenever we are having the I pinged from it first, PC1 I ping, the ping was okay. I took some time, I waited for the time, right? And then I pinged from this PC2, the ping was okay. And same time I pinged from the PC3. I took some time, so meanwhile what happened? Whatever the translation table was there, that was cleared. So once the translation table is cleared, that pool IP gets free. Once it is pool IP is free, it is again available to use it. So that's what is happening. It is a very short time whenever the translation is happening and it's clear. Now if you see the translation, there is no translation. Why? Because it has cleared all the translation whatever we have just done. If you ping it here, just ping it, and if you see the translation, it is having the translation, but it is very quickly deleting them. I am pinging from PC2, now I am pinging from PC3. Obviously PC3 is not allowed this time because it would have not cleared so fast the translation. You see, both the IP addresses 12.1 and 12.2 are used, and we cannot ping from the PC3 as of now, right? And if I ping from the, see the translation now, let me see it when it is cleared, or let me ping it again, and let's see that how much translations are cleared or not. Still not. Do it. Yeah, one is less, again next is less. Now, so now let's see that whether it has pinged or not. So in the last packet it has got the reply. This time it will take that IP address and all the packets will reply. And if you see it here, it will be using the same IP address which is free from the translation. Let's see the translation here, right? So 12.1 translation is available and 12.2 is free, so it has taken 12.2 and replying to that one. So that's how it is like a dynamic NAT translation. But this time we also do not use this one, right? So the third option, that is a PAT, port address translation, and that is very highly used, and that's what we are going to use it this time. So let's configure that. Config T. List is fine, we don't have to delete any list because that list is okay. What we are going to change, the pool, because we don't need two IP addresses, right? So IP NAT pool Anuj, let me delete it. So pool Anuj in use, cannot destroy. Okay, so first I have to delete it. IP NAT inside source list 1 pool Anuj, and delete it. No, right? Now I can delete the pool. Now pool is deleted. Now let's create a new pool, because not pool, although we are creating a pool, but our interface will also work very fine. But if you wish, as we discussed, right, there might be like more than the 60,000 computers in your network. In that case, we may need the pool, but by default, if you are having less than 20,000 computers, interface IP works very fine. So this time I'm not going to create any other pool. I'm just going to use the interface. So IP NAT inside source list 1, and there's an option for the interface. So I'm going to use interface, and then okay, which interface I have to use? G 0/0/1. And next extra thing is here, it is a overload. Whenever we are giving the command as overload, it is doing the PAT. The same thing we could have done in the dynamic one. If we give this command overload keyword, it is doing the PAT. So if I run it this time, that's it. That's it. We have just done our PAT enabled. Let me ping it now, if it is working fine or not. It's working. It's working. It's working. Let's see the reply. To whom it is replying. Let me clear it first, otherwise it's always confusing. Right. So let me just ping once again. Right. And let me ping from third computer, and let's see to whom it is replying. It is replying to 12.1, 12.1, 12.1, 12.1, 12.1, 12.1 every time, because this interface is IP address is 12.1, right? Don't you remember? Show IP interface brief. Do show IP interface brief. Interface brief. You see, this is 12.1. The most important part is the translation. Let's see the translation here. Do show NAT translation. Do show IP NAT translation. It will have cleared till now. Why it's not happening? Show IP NAT translations. So if you observe the translations this time, you see that the inside global IP addresses are all same. They are all having the IP address 12.1, 12.1, 12.1, 12.1. You see? The difference is the port number. That's what it is changing every time. So that is making the difference. So this is just our NAT and PAT, and word is around this. We are always playing with that one. There's nothing else on the NAT. So whenever it comes to the troubleshooting, we can always check the translations, that it is happening or not, or anyone is not able to access the internet. That's also we can check whether he is having the NAT translations or not, right? Show IP NAT statics. This is the also a type of summary or information we are having about NAT. So that's it for the day, I think. And if you have any questions, you can reach me anytime, right? So you would have reached me on Instagram. My ID is Sir Anush Shukla. Or you can also join my Facebook group, that is a CCNA VIP. You can just search on the Facebook and you can get it. That is just for the asking questions or get it updated regarding whatever I'm posting. And meanwhile, you can also comment if you have any questions. I will get back to you. And for information, if you are running recently, I'm every Sunday I'm online with all you guys for taking questions, right? So whatever I have just shared you, that's 4 to 5 p.m. IST. That is very because I'm just, this is Indian time, Indian Standard Time, and I'm online on that one. You can just ask me, and the link to join the session or Google Meet, it is here, right? So here you can just join it here, Google Meet link, and this is the link to reach my web page. Okay, and remaining all session I have already discussed you, so not to worry. That's it. Okay guys, bye bye, see you soon in the next session. Till then, bye bye.